fixing your sleep and building in a normal circadian rhythm, this is non-negotiable. You cannot out diet broken sleep. So today we're going to learn how to lower insulin and heal the root cause of chronic disease. So you've learned that insulin resistance is the root cause. You've realized and seen the early warning signs. You've realized that normal blood sugar isn't enough. Now the question is, what do I do about it? Today's episode is the answer. I'm going to walk you through the exact steps to lower insulin, reverse insulin resistance, and rebuild your metabolic health from the inside out. No gimmicks, no hacks, just a simple framework that works because it's grounded in biology, not in buzzwords. Buzzwords. So welcome everyone. My name is Dr. Mark Shankman. Welcome back to the Obesity Project. Today, episode 43, the Metabolic Reversal Plan. And as I mentioned, how to lower insulin and heal the root cause of chronic disease. So let's start with a reminder. I mentioned this in a couple previous videos. If you haven't checked those out, feel free to go look up my profile and check the last couple out. Insulin is the master hormone of energy regulation. And when insulin's high, there's a couple things that happen. One, fat burning is shut off. Fat storage is turned on, hunger increases, inflammation rises, blood pressure goes up, blood sugar stays low until the entire system breaks down. And that's when you start to see hyperglycemia. And so if we want to reverse obesity, type 2 diabetes, PCOS, fatty liver, and more, many of these chronic illnesses, we don't want to just manage glucose, which is unfortunately what the medical profession kind of focuses on. What we need to do is not just manage glucose, that is part of it, but we most importantly need to lower insulin. That's absolutely the target, and that's what this plan is designed to do. So let's go ahead and break it down. Here are the 5 pillars of the metabolic reversal plan. So pillar number 1, lower insulinogenic foods, so foods that stimulate insulin release or production. So not all calories are created equal because not all foods affect insulin in the very same way. So your goal is to reduce foods that spike insulin unnecessarily, such as refined carbohydrates, things like bread, pasta, cereal, crackers, baked goods. Sugar-sweetened beverages are terrible in terms of spiking insulin. Low-fat processed foods loaded with starches and sugars. And then frequent snacks that keep the insulin elevated. These are the things that we want to get rid of from our diet. Refined carbohydrates, sugar-sweetened beverages, low-fat processed foods, and frequent snacks. All of these things create a higher insulin level. Instead, what we want to focus on are things like high-quality proteins, things like eggs, beef, fish, poultry, animal proteins. Now, this isn't a carnivore animal protein versus vegetarian conversation. High-quality proteins, you can get that from plant foods as well, but definitely easier to get it from the animal meats and animal fats. So you're going to get your high quality protein. You're going to need to build in healthy fats, things like olive oil, avocados, grass-fed butter. You're also want to focus on non-starchy vegetables such as leafy greens and cruciferous veggies, things like broccoli and that sort of thing. You also want to include low sugar fruits, things like the berries that you see in the bowl behind me. So remember, the goal isn't no carbs. This isn't a no carb plan. It's to lower insulin. And so you need to choose carbs that come with their protective resources, things like fiber, minerals, and we want to create context around our carbohydrate choices. So pillar number two is strategic meal timing or intermittent fasting. So every single time you eat, you raise insulin. Now, of course, we talked about in various different videos that different macros do raise insulin to different levels. Of course, your carbohydrates are going to raise your insulin most, but protein is also going to raise insulin, and fat has the least amount of uh, insulin up or insulin raise or elevated insulin levels, but there is a slight insulin increase with fats as well. So, what is the solution? You want to space your meals out to allow insulin levels to fall naturally on their own. So, you want to start with intermittent fasting. Things like if you're brand new to intermittent fasting, if you've never fasted before, you want to start with a 12-12 intermittent fasting plan. Sorry, my eye is itching. Yeah. Um, 12-12 means you're going to fast for 12 hours and then you're going to eat for 12 hours. And this is sort of a standard diet without snacking, right? So you might finish dinner at 7 p.m. and then get up at 7 a.m. and you're going to eat breakfast. So that's 12-12. Then you want to start to expand that fasting window, shrinking that eating window a little bit. So going from a 12-12 maybe into a 14-10. So 14 hours of fasting, 10 hours of eating. And then ultimately you want to try to move into a 16-8, which is sort of the ideal. Most people find that it's easiest to do. You start getting those eating windows a little bit shorter, it gets a little bit more challenging. But try to get to a 16-8. That's what I did for a number of years, and it is very effective to lower those insulin levels and to lose some weight as well. So so you're going to start with intermittent fasting, 12-12, 14-10, ultimately to 16-8. The second thing you want to do is no snacking between meals. This is very important to allow those insulin levels to come down. And then the other thing you want to do is eat your first meal only when you're genuinely hungry. So if you get up at 7 a.m. and you're not hungry, there's nothing that says you have to eat that first meal at 7 a.m. You can absolutely go longer. You can go to 9, 10, 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Eat when you're hungry, not when the clock says you should eat. We are so pre-programmed in this society to eat 3 meals a day and then snack a number of times during the way. And the reality is we don't need to eat that often. We don't need to eat that much. So eat your first meal only when you're genuinely hungry. Then, after you get these couple items down, and then for more advanced protocols, you want to build in a 24-hour fast about 1 to 2 times per week. You want to then maybe think about introducing a 36-hour fast. So, like dinner to breakfast over 2 days. So, dinner one night, skipping everything the next day, and then you're eating your next meal at breakfast the following day. And then you can even build in a 5-2 model, which is 2 lower calorie days per week, and then the intermittent fasting, like 16-8 on top of it. So this isn't about starvation. You are not starving yourself. It's simply about giving your metabolism time to breathe and time to allow that insulin level to plummet and drop naturally on its own. Okay, so those are the first two pillars. Pillar number three is to build insulin sensitive muscle. So, muscle is one of your biggest glucose sinks. The more muscle you have, the more carbohydrate your body can handle. It's a large, large reservoir for the glucose. So, one of the first things that you can build in is some resistance training. Resistance training improves glucose uptake without insulin. So you don't need insulin for the muscles to soak up that glucose. It also improves mitochondrial efficiency, so energy creation, using that glucose in an efficient manner to make you as much ATP, the currency of energy that your cells need to actually get the job done, like muscle contraction and other physiologic changes. And then also it improves your inflammatory markers and decreases many of those inflammatory markers. So resistance training, a very, very powerful tool, I don't know why I said it that way, a powerful tool to to soak up that extra glucose. And you don't need a gym. I actually don't go to the gym. All you need is progressive tension. So you can start out with body weight exercises. You can do things like push-ups and squats and planks. I actually, for about 2 years, did nothing more than body weight exercises for my resistance training, and then I did some cardiovascular in between. Now I actually have kind of advanced beyond that a little bit, and now I've built in dumbbells, or you can add resistance bands as well. And now I do this is just my own personal thing. It's not necessarily what I'm recommending for everybody, but I'm doing dumbbell training because I'm not at the gym, and it was easy enough for me to get a few dumbbells and get the job done. Um, Doing dumbbell training 3 days a week, and then I do yoga and stretching, those other two. And then, just simple compound movements 2 to 4 times per week will provide that progressive tension that will allow your muscles to soak up that extra glucose. And cardio definitely helps too. But as far as insulin reversal goes, strength training is absolutely king. Cardio is great. Cardio is good for cardiovascular health. It's good for endurance. But when it comes to insulin reversal and absorbing all that extra blood glucose and allowing insulin levels to come down, strength training is the most important and the maximal effect. Okay, so now pillar number 4, sleep and circadian repair. So chronic sleep loss equals instant insulin resistance. And in this society, in this world that we live in right now, this modern world, many, many people are not getting the kind of sleep that they need. Most people, you've heard a million times you should get like 8 or 9 hours of sleep. Most people, if they're lucky, get 6 hours. And in just one night of poor sleep, insulin sensitivity drops by up to 30%. So sleep is an incredibly important tool when it comes to reversing insulin resistance. And if you're dieting and you're trying to lose weight, loss of sleep or not getting a good night's sleep is going to impair you getting the results that you want. And a good night of sleep will actually aid your weight loss journey. So, as I mentioned, one night of poor sleep, insulin sensitivity drops by up to 30%. Now, why is that? Because cortisol goes up. Cortisol is your stress hormone, which raises blood glucose, and your hunger hormones get dysregulated. And if your hunger hormones gets dysregulated, you're going to want to eat. You're going to be excessively hungry beyond what your body needs for energy. So, how do we fix this? We have to fix it by building in good sleep patterns and good sleep and circadian rhythms. So we need to start going to bed before 11 p.m. I usually shoot for right around 9, but I'm also getting up at about 5. So, go to bed before 11 p.m., avoiding screens for about 90 minutes before bed, blocking blue light at night. Blue light will interfere with your normal circadian rhythm and sleep. Getting morning sunlight exposure. This is a new one that I've added. I go outside for a bit while I sip on my morning coffee, and I get some of that early morning sunlight into your eyes. And there is something called, I'm forgetting, new morning sunlight or something like that, where in the first early hours of the sun coming up over the horizon, you can get great sunlight without UV light that can cause, skin cancer and all that. So getting that sunlight into your eyes early in the morning is very, very important. And then you want to limit caffeine use after 1 p.m. That's why I know the afternoon drinks, the energy drinks are very, very popular, but they have tremendous amounts of caffeine, and people are drinking them well into the afternoons, and this can absolutely interfere with your sleep. So I do not recommend those. And fixing your sleep and building in a normal circadian rhythm, this is non-negotiable. You cannot out diet broken sleep. All right, so let's get to pillar number 5, reverse those drivers, things like stress and toxins and overload. So insulin resistance isn't just about food. Yes, it plays a major role, but it's not just about food. It's about overload. Chronic stress can absolutely affect insulin resistance. Chronic stress, as I mentioned, does create chronically high cortisol levels, and those cortisol levels increase insulin and increase insulin resistance. So, also environmental toxins, things like BPA and phthalates, disrupt normal hormonal signaling. You can get nutrient deficiencies, things like magnesium, omega-3s, and chromium. All of these nutrient deficiencies impair the insulin response. And then, of course, just simple mental overload, which creates anxiety, resentment, grief, which can all elevate metabolic stress. So we need to learn to regulate our nervous systems. And I don't have any one particular favorite of my own, but you can do things like meditation. And I've done this in the past, just not something I do regularly at this point. But you can do things like meditation. You can do cold exposure, so cold plunges. Deep breathing is fantastically effective. You can simply go for a walk and then socialize too. Socializing is a big way to regulate the nervous system. So you build community and connection, which has the same effect as some of these other things that we talked about. So your nervous system is part of your metabolism. If you heal one, you heal the other. All right, so let me tell you about a patient. I want to put this into a real case and real reversal. So this patient's name was Alex. Alex, 47 years old, had an A1C of 6.2, a fasting glucose of 103, and a fasting insulin level of 16, triglyceride level of 210. And he was told he was pre-diabetic and immediately given metformin. Instead of taking the metformin, though, what he did was he implemented these 5 pillars: no meds, no strategy. And 3 months later, he had a fasting insulin, which dropped to 7. He had triglycerides, which dropped 80 points, had a waist, which shrank 4 inches in circumference. Energy and sleep dramatically improved, and his A1C, 5.3 without medication. That's not a management plan. That's a reversal. So insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, all of these chronic disorders that result from insulin resistance can absolutely be reversed. When it comes to the chronic diseases, we've got to get to that reversal before permanent damage is done, though. I have to kind of put that in there. So let me summarize by saying insulin resistance is not a sentence. It's a signal, one that can be reversed. And you don't need a fad diet to do it. You don't need to starve yourself. All right. Intermittent fasting is not starvation. You need to understand the system and work with it and not against it. You need to lower your insulin levels and restore insulin sensitivity. So let your metabolism do what it was designed to do. We were designed to be fat burners and sugar burners. We were designed to be a hybrid engine. And many of us, because of the chronic carbohydrate intake, have forgotten how to become fat burners. And we've forgotten how to get insulin sensitive again. So this plan will absolutely help you do that. So I appreciate you watching. I hope you learned a little something about how to reverse insulin resistance. And make sure to stay tuned, because in episode 44, I'm going to talk about the 4 foods that keep you insulin resistant, even if you're healthy, and we'll expose what might be holding you back. So remember, your labs may be normal, but your symptoms are not. Start here, start now. This is how we rebuild from the root. Once again, thank you for joining me, and like, share, and comment. Make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.